phone and say, hey, have you seen this lately? Anthony Recker right here, bottom of the 13th, tied it up. Off Heath Bell, nice.
Yeah, you know, sometimes you, what is it, a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while? Isn't that the, but yeah.
Well, you crushed that ball, man.
Hey, you know, like occasionally I made contact, and when I did, good things seemed to happen. So.
Okay, 7 years in the major leagues as a catcher. I want to get to, like, what's being done to catchers now. But how sophisticated or analytical was the position when you broke in? Drafted by the A's, you get to the majors 2011, right? So what was it like then as far as the information overload?
Yeah, I would imagine then it wasn't over the top. You know, it was more about I had the computer programs. We were supposed to go on and you know, do our research, figure out what we thought of the hitters, and then we would get into the meeting with the pitching coach and our manager, Bob Melvin at the time, you know, and we would go over the scouting report, and you'd go out on the field, and, you know, you had an idea of what you wanted to do. You had some key points. You had some, you know, guys you wanted to attack in, attack away. Did they swing early? Did they swing late? You know, what are they looking for in certain situations? But it wasn't overload. You know, it was an amount of information that you could handle and that you could take out there and you could work with. You know, and I think now what you're seeing is a completely different you know, approach to it, and that's why the guys are all wearing the wristbands. The wristbands are huge now.
How big was framing emphasized in 2011?
I never heard of it. I mean, well, really? I shouldn't say that. Like, look, you know, when you're a kid and you're growing up and you're doing some things and you're trying to make strikes and everything, but then you get to a point in your career where people were saying you don't need to do that. Like the umpire will call it or he won't call it, and if it's not a strike, it's not a strike. Just keep the ball in front of you. That's the most important thing. When I got to the A's, actually, early in my minor league career, it was, look, our job is to keep the ball in front of us, number one. And then from there, you can branch out into everything else. But you need to keep the ball in front of you. And that's taken a huge turn. And I didn't really notice it until, I would say, I was with the Mets, and I think 2015 was really the first year I really noticed it, that we were talking about it. 14, we talked about it a little bit. But 15, it became a big thing where we were working on it every day in spring training. During the season, almost after every start that I had or Travis had or, you know, Kevin Plawecki, when he was there, it was how did you score? What did you do? What pitches look good? You'd go over the film to see what it looked like. And so you're doing all these things, and that's when it really became, you know, to me at least, you know, really what the position is all about. I got to the Braves, and I took a step back with them because at that time they were still kind of, you know, in the caveman days where they weren't thinking about it. And I stopped thinking about it. And then my last year I spent with Arizona, with the Diamondbacks, and they were very big on the pitch framing. And that was something that we talked about all the time. It was something that was huge within that entire organization. And obviously it's been very big and throughout baseball.
So you're just always thinking, whoop, or a whoop, like that? Like you're just working on being, like Dave Valley always says, soft hands, collect, but also like don't stab at it, things like that?
Yeah, well, there's definitely more of a science to it. I give a lot of credit to Tyler Flowers for the things that I learned and some of the things
he was high level with pitch framing.
He is elite at pitch framing, and he does things that I don't think every catcher can go out there and do.
Like what? Like what
okay, so he starts below the baseball. And he will literally tap his glove on the ground, you know, as the pitch is coming in, and then work up through the ball. And to do that, it's a game. It's a high risk, high reward game because
your glove's here and the ball's coming in.
Well, as your glove's down, down so low, the umpire can't see it.
Right.
He has no idea where your glove is.
Right.
He saw you give your target, and then you dropped your glove. He has no idea. The next time he sees your glove, you're coming up to the ball and up into the zone. And he doesn't know exactly when that ball hits because you're moving through the baseball and then you're presenting it in the zone. So you get a lot of those low strike calls, and that's what Tyler, you know, was big on. That he's the bottom of the zone guy, and that's what he's huge with.
All right. There, we learned something there, boy, I tell you.
We can go a lot further than that. We can go a lot further.
Hold on a second. All right, give us something else then. All right, so what give us another trick of the trade.
Well, okay, so now I'll just go from the opposite way. So when you're looking at the top of the zone and you're trying to get strikes, start high, start above the zone, and don't be afraid to get up. There's a lot of catchers. When I came up, I would give my high strike, you know, target, and I would give it from my low position, and I would just kind of, you know, just I wouldn't even really get that high. I'd almost be like belt high, and it was, you know, which is silly. You don't want to throw the ball belt high. Why would you want to do that? You know, and when I got to Arizona, it was all right. Hey, let's work well above the zone, and the only thing the umpire is going to see is you working down through the ball and down into the zone. So it's the exact opposite. There's things you can do with the way you shift your weight and the way your weight is positioned to help you on the edges to keep the ball, you know, closer to the plate or seam closer to the plate. You're using your body as strength to angles of your body, the angles of your arm to give yourself the proper, the biomechanics and how the body works. It'll give you the ability to move the ball without being stiff and being soft. As you mentioned, soft is still huge. Got to have good hands. So if you don't, that's when you see a lot of those pass balls. The problem is when you start to think about it too much. And I think that's where the game can get to and gets to with some catchers nowadays.
See, we've seen like weird passed balls and missed pitches and things like that. And you start to dig into it, and it seems like you have all that to worry about, right? Your framing and your placing and everything else. Also now, the pitch sequencing, right? And the angle of attack is so specific. I imagine it must make you nuts. Like, you have so much to think about. In addition to, it is physically debilitating to play that spot.
Oh, absolutely. All of that comes into play. And I think the biggest thing is you have to be able to handle all this information as a catcher, but you also have to be able to, utilize it, take it out on the field. But it has to become second nature. You have to be doing this so much behind the scenes, so much work, so much practice, to the point where you get out there and it is second nature, but you still have to anticipate. And that's where I think some of these guys have gotten in trouble with the pass balls, with wild pitches and things like that. They haven't had the ability to, get it to the point where it's second nature, and still with thinking about, you're not just thinking about, the sequences and the hitters that are up. You're also thinking about, if there's a runner on first, is he going to steal? Where is my shortstop positioned right now? Because I want to throw this pitch, but if he's positioned up the middle and I'm trying to go away to a lefty, and I've got a Michael Brantley type up there who can slap the ball the other way, or if he wants to,
you can't give him that pitch.
I don't want to go there. So all that stuff's going through your head.
Is that coordinated then from the pitch selection, like where the defense is going to be and what pitch is being selected?
Well, that's more like the last few years has been a lot of that. I think they've been coordinating, collaborating a lot of those things together. And if teams haven't been doing that, they certainly need to be, because that's the way of the game. That's where you're headed. All that information can be very useful. I brought up Michael Brantley, and I think of a specific moment in the playoffs, not this past year, but the year before, when he was at the Astros, and I want to say it was the ALCS. I'm not 100% sure on the game, but look, they had him shifted. They had him played, to right field.
Right.
But I'm watching the game, going, this is Michael Brantley. I played with this guy with Cleveland for a little bit. I know him. He's going to slap the ball the other way. Sure enough, he gets a pitch up. They were trying to come in, but it was out over the plate just a little bit, and he was able to keep his hands inside, smack that thing down the line, and he had a double. So that's where you have to have the two things working together, and then you also need the execution. So if you don't have all of it working together, you're more vulnerable to things to happen.
Right.